Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about Totem, a brand new studio album, the 12th overall, from Brazilian heavy metal crew Soulfly. Soulfly has been the primary focus of one Max Cavalera since being fired from Sepultura in the late 90s, and as such, Soulfly has unsurprisingly been a continuation of what Max was doing with Sepultura at that time on records like Chaos AD and Roots. You know, a lot of like pummeling, thrashy, death metal riffs and rhythms with big, fat, bouncy fucking grooves, and like influence from Brazilian music, indigenous music, world music, tribal percussion, and chanting. Side note, it's fascinating in retrospect to really dissect the Sepultura and Soulfly discographies, because while Sepultura was going into more high-concept territory with records like Dante 21, Alex, The Mediator Between Head and Hands of the Heart, Machine Messiah, Quadra, Soulfly is just kind of doing what I think most people wanted and expected Sepultura to keep doing. Which isn't to say Max hasn't had some more experimental deviations and gone into more creative territory, because he has, through projects like Kill or Be Killed, Go Ahead and Die, and to a certain extent even Cavalera Conspiracy. But as far as Soulfly is concerned, they've remained really consistent to the point of appearing occasionally somewhat stubborn and musically conservative. For these reasons, though, I would say that Soulfly is my least favorite of all of Max's projects. They've never released anything incompetent or offensive or terrible or even mediocre, but there's been a lot of like really forgettable kind of lukewarm shit. Mid, as the kids would say. Because, like, there's only so many times I can listen to a hodgepodge of rehashed, microwaved Chaos AD and Roots beats and riffs and still be, like, super crazy pumped and excited, you know what I mean? And for these reasons, I can't really say that I was into Totem all that much either. In fact, despite some admittedly strong riffery courtesy of the uber-talented Arthur Rizk, I have to be honest, I was kind of bored by this record. It does admittedly start off on a pretty strong note with the spicy and flavorful triple whammy of Superstition, Scouring the Vial, and Filth Upon Filth. The first of which is a tight, slick, heavy metal bruiser, basically everything you would want from a Soulfly or a Sepultura track. The second of which has the violent momentum and the squealing guitar leads of, like, classic Slayer, and is further emboldened by some great guest vocals by Obituary's John Tardy. And the third of which is stuffed with classic heavy metal riffery and melody. Like, it's got this big galloping lead to it, it's got a really punchy, memorable chorus. It almost kind of feels like a Nawabum-style heavy metal song, but like with a Sepultura Soulfly coat of paint. I especially like how it gets more intense and more brutal as it gets closer and closer to the end, making for legitimately a pretty cathartic finish. But after these three tracks, there's a noticeable downgrade in the quality and the fluidity of the songwriting, and in turn the overall cohesion of the record. Ancestors, for instance, is a pretty straightforward and generic kind of thrash death metal rager that never really goes anywhere. It makes you think that it's going to go somewhere with this building riff that continues to get heavier and continues to kind of build and stack tension and drama, but it never leads to any kind of real climax or catharsis. It just kind of stops. Then there's Rot in Pain, which for a brief moment dips its toes a little bit too far into some Korn-style nu metal, groove metal tendencies for my personal liking. But the worst, I would say, is the combo offering of the instrumental piece Soulfly 12 and the album's 9-minute closing number Spirit Animal. The former of which is a completely unnecessary instrumental piece. Like, if I were to cut one thing from this record right away, it's that. The latter of which is kind of bloated and kind of meandering, and it takes a little bit too long to get to the fucking point. The former of which is an unnecessary instrumental piece that adds nothing of value or substance to the record, The latter of which is too long for its own good, too bloated, it spends too much time meandering on all these different ambient and distorted soundscapes. There are some chunky riffs and some cool guest vocals from Insight's Richie Cavalera that captured my attention and curiosity ever so briefly, but never really rewarded it. Like, if it were up to me, folks, I'd be cutting 5 to 6 minutes off of Spirit Animal, and probably the entirety of Soulfly 12 from the record entirely. It's just unnecessary fat and gristle that gets in the way of a pretty well-seasoned and cooked ribeye steak. One which is being served up by a pretty confident and enthusiastic team of chefs. I mean, Max is in peak form on this thing. The rest of Soulfly is in tip-top form on this thing. They sound great. Unfortunately, what they're playing just isn't consistently exciting. I'm feeling a 2.5 out of 5, but leaning towards a 3 out of 5. In fact, if there were like 1 or 2 more songs that I found myself really enjoying, this probably would be a 3 out of 5 for me, because I do think overall it is a well-made record. Like, everyone sounds great, the songs that hit hard do hit reasonably pretty fucking hard, but unfortunately there just aren't enough songs that are really exciting me, that are really satisfying me. Some of the material in this record feels kind of confused and pointless, and there's a lot of material that just feels kind of average, you know, like the same stuff I've been hearing from Soulfly for like over 20 fucking years now. Like, say and believe whatever the hell you want about the quality of Sepultura's post-Max Cavalera output. There's no arguing, period, don't even try to, that any of those records sound identical or feel identical. Sepultura is constantly doing new stuff. Soulfly as a band, on the other hand, is kind of constantly just doing the same thing. It might be closer to what Sepultura fans want, and again, Max might be doing other stuff outside of Soulfly to kind of make up for this, but even so, Soulfly is kind of doing the same thing over and over, and it's starting to get a little boring for me. Very simply put, Totem is not exactly at the top of the totem pole. Pun only semi-intended. 2.5 out of 5, still leaning towards a 3 out of 5. It's okay, check it out. I don't love it, but maybe you will. Whatever. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown e-fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.